Good morning. My name is Sue. I'm going to be going through the items that you get when you get your precise pantograph system. It's going to come in a box, and within that box, the first thing that you're going to have is this wrapped little unit. It contains the A-frame, it contains the handles, that will be in a package once you unwrap it, and that's what the package will look like. There's some hardware in there, and there's probably more hardware than what you need for your particular system. It's difficult to try and figure out everything that everyone needs for their system, so we try to do the best that we can with the different items. The next thing that's going to be in your box is a clamp. This is what's going to go underneath and clamp the system onto the back of your machine. And the clamp that we send you, we're anticipating that it will fit your particular machine. However, if the clamp is not the right one or your machine requires a different one, all you need to do is contact Trinity and she can get the right clamp to you. Sometimes it requires a picture of your particular machine so that she's sending out the right clamp. All of the machines are different. All of the machines are different widths, different heights, the tables are all different, and we've done the best that we can to try and accommodate the 20 million machines that are out there. So don't get upset if the particular clamp doesn't work. Just get on the phone, call, and we'll accommodate you as soon as we possibly can so that you're up and stitching. The last thing in the box is the main bar, and that bar is the same. There won't be any changes with that particular bar for you. That's all that comes in the box. So the next thing that we're going to do is show you how to assemble the PPS onto your machine. As I told you earlier, in your package you're going to have a hardware kit. In some of the boxes that went out, the A-frame was assembled. In this particular box, when we opened it, the A-frame was not assembled. So remember, I told you you're going to have a packet like this, and everything that you need is in here plus some. And so this particular hardware kit is inside here. So I've opened it up and I have the parts for the A-frame. I have this part. Then I have the two side parts. I have the handle. And what you do is you take the big screw and you're going to take the handle. You're going to use a hex tool, which you're going to need. It looks like this. And you're going to put the hex tool in here. Just use the hex tool to tighten the handle up. And so now in the assembly, I have these two parts for the A-frame, and I have this part for the A-frame as well. These handles are going to attach on either side of the A-frame. I'm not sure where they're going to attach yet because I have to check and guess in the very beginning, just get an estimate of where they need to sit for my machine. So remember, I told you, you have the bar. So I take my bar because I just want to have an idea of where these are going to go. The final adjustment comes once I've attached the bar to the machine. So I set it back here. I want it to sit on my machine as far back as it will go. And then the A-frame is going to attach right there. And so then I'm going to take this handle and I want this to float on the table. I don't want it dragging and I don't want it up here. It's too hard to handle. So I want it so that it's going to kind of float on the table. And I want it level. Now again, I'm going to do my final attachment. This is just giving me an idea of where to start. So once I have that idea of where to start, there are holes here, and I'm going to line those holes up, and I'm going to take one of the screws here, and I'm going to put it through, and then there's a little nut here that comes in the hardware package, and that's going to go on, and then I'm going to take a second screw, line it through the hole as you can see, and with the nut. I haven't tightened it down really tight because remember I said we'll do the final adjustment, and I can move this bar right here. I can move it up or I can move it down. I have a lot of play there so that it will match where my machine and the table coincide. So now that I know about where that's going to be, I'm going to match up the other side put my screw through, put the nut on, and again, I'm not tightening it down tight because I want to be able to make that final adjustment once I get the bar attached to the machine. So that's my A-frame. That's how my A-frame is going to go onto the machine. Very easy to put it together. A couple of things that I also want to share with you. When you have a machine, they are machines. So you do have to have some kind of tools to help you do your work a little bit better. I talked about needing a hex to tighten my bolts, and there are two different sizes, one for the handle and one for here. So I went to the hardware store and I got this little gadget, and it has all the different kinds of hexes in there, all the different sizes, so it doesn't matter where on my machine. If I need a hex to help me tighten a bolt, I have that. So I do have those here. And then I do have a wrench, and this is a kind that has a little button on the side, so you push it one way and it will tighten, or you push it the other way and it will loosen. And so that's really helpful. You could use a different kind of wrench, but I did get this because it just works really well. In your packet, remember we talked about the main bar. There's the clamp, and I took a bolt and I attached it to the clamp very lightly so that it's just barely on there. It's not tight because I have to fit it to my machine. I want to make sure that the logo for Precise Pantograph is pointing out. I'm going to load it so that my laser is on the left side of the back of the machine. I could mount it to go the other direction if I wanted to, but again, I'm going to make sure that the label is going that way. However, when I do most of my pantographs, I am moving from right to left, so I'm going to mount it on that side. I want to make sure that I protect my machine and from being scratched, so I've gotten a couple pieces of bat that I'm going to put on here. And so one of the ways that I'm going to make it a little easy is take a piece of blue tape, and I'm just going to very easily put that piece of bat on there so that it doesn't slide and I can easily protect my machine. You could use dots, you could use moleskin, you could use anything that you'd like. I just want to make sure that my machine doesn't get scratched. So I'm going to come to my machine. I want to make sure that I have good working space. So I'm going to move my machine back so that I can get to things. And I'm going to turn my channel locks on so my machine isn't going to roll. I'm going to turn this over to the side so that I can get it over. And I'm going to slip it underneath. And because of the batting that I have, it's just a little bit tight, so I'm going to have to kind of maneuver that. I want the batting on top as well so that my machine is protected without being scratched. I'm going to take, and I want it to go on my machine. I have a little weld right there. This is an APQS Millennium, and I'm going to scoot it back as far as I can. And I want to make sure that the bolt that I'm using is the right size. We've included a couple common different size bolts in your packet, and if the bolt is too long, it's going to embed right into that part of your machine. I don't want that to happen. I'm sure you don't either. So check the bolts. If you do not have the right size bolt, we've included in the directions the type of bolt and all of that that you would need, and you would have to go to the hardware store to change that. But we have included the two most common ones. So now I want to take that bolt, and I want to go down, scoot this over as far as it will go, this bolt, so it's up against my machine. And then I'm going to take the bolt, and I want that bolt here, it's too far away from the machine. I do want it as close to the arm of the machine to stabilize this main bolt. So I'm going to take it. It will fit in that hole on my machine, but we have provided different holes if your machine needs to have it moved further out. Again, it's back as far and over as far as can be. Then I'm going to take this bolt, and it gets a little bit tricky here because I want to take this bolt and I want to slip it underneath, and I want to tighten it by finger holding that bolt under there and tightening the bolt. On my particular machine, I don't have a lot of room underneath here to attach the nut to the bolt. So I have to play with the bolt, squeeze so that just barely the threads, I can see them through this hole, put my finger under there where that nut is, hold it in place, and I'm using whichever fingers that work, but once I get that nut started, I'm going to hold it in place, and then I will tighten the bolt onto the nut. My machine, there isn't a lot of room under there, so it's going to take me a little bit of play to get that connected under there. The batting here just adds a little extra protection, but you don't really need that, so I could have cut my batting shorter. It just happened to be I just took a piece and cut it. Now, I haven't tightened these two bolts down really tight yet because I want to make sure that my bar is level. So, again, you have a machine, you need some tools. So I have a level here that I'm going to sit on there, and as you can see, it is not level. That little bubble needs to be in the center between those two lines. So I know once I start tightening the bolt over here on the right hand side at the back of the machine, it's going to move that bubble that direction. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do, is come around to this side and I'm going to tighten that bolt. In the directions, we talked about needing 2 1/2-inch crescent wrenches. Here is one, and it's open-ended. This is the other kind that I talked about, but you could use another open-ended one. And I'm going to use that to hold the nut down here in place while I tighten this one up here. Now, as I tighten this, I am looking at where that bubble is. Remember, I want it on my level between the two lines. And I am not wrenching this down. I'm just tightening, checking the bubble, tightening, checking the bubble. And once I have it level, then I'm good on this bolt. Remember, the bolt on this side, we only finger tightened, and again, I want to tighten it as well. It is not trying to squish my machine together, and I want to make sure that my bar is level and is going to hold in place, so I'm not just tightening the crap out of it. I want to make sure that it is level and that it is tight, so it's not going to move as I get ready to precisely do my pantographs. So on this side, again, I take my open-ended wrench, I hook it onto the bolt over there just to hold it in place, and then I'm going to tighten this bolt that earlier I had just finger tightened. Now, you always start with this bolt first, so that you can keep the bar level. If you start with this one, you won't be able to get the bar level. So always make sure that you are starting on this side. You do not want your bar dipping downward or upward. So start here, check your bubble, and then tighten this one so that it's secure on the machine. At which point now it's not going to move, it's secure on the machine, and it hasn't squished my machine. It's level, and now I'm going to go to the next part on assembling the machine. I have my A-frame here, and remember on the A-frame that I'm going to take my locks, there we go. We want to make sure that those handles are floating on the table and we don't want them this high up, nor do we want them dragging on the table. And again, just as a reminder, I used my channel locks to hold my machine in place so that as I am working on easily assembling this, my machine isn't moving around. So my A-frame is going to go in the outside bar over here. I do have a second hole that is drilled here just in case I needed to do a pantograph where I needed that extra few inches, so I could bolt it here, but I always bolt it here unless I know that I need that. In the packet, remember I told you about the bar for attaching the laser, so I'm going to take the lock nut off. I'm going to take this nut and screw it all the way down, and it's going to go through that hole, and then it's going to go up through the hole up here, and then the nut is going to go on the top. And I want to make sure that this is straight, and I'm going to check where my handles are. This is where I can do a fine adjustment if I need. I can drop my handles down further to the table, or I can raise them up. Remember, I haven't tightened these nuts yet because I just guessed. When I am quilting, I want to make sure that it's going to glide over the top of the table. So that looks like a pretty good spacing for me so that it's not dragging on the table. So we're going to be using on this one the battery powered laser. I do have to share with you, this is a very simple accessory or tool to attach to your machine. Don't make it harder than what it is. I am not mechanical. I don't think about the machine, and so as I have done more and more long arming, again, I've had to find out what a hex bolt tightener was and crescent wrenches and how to use them, and they're not hard, as you can see. So in putting the video together, I've dropped the bolt on the floor several times and had to get down and look for it, but we're set to go now. I'm going to take this little bolt, and it's going to go down through the top, and then I have a nut that I'm going to tighten underneath. And there's a second one there as well that I'm going to tighten just for a little extra security. I've only finger tightened them. I don't need to use the wrench to do that until I am sure that that's where I want it, and it's level and it's straight. Because it now is, then I'm going to take my little tool here, and I'm going to tighten that. And if I need to, use the wrench down here, the open-ended part, to hold that in place while I tighten it, then I'm going to do that. So it's nice and tight and it's straight, and my handles are able to glide over the top of the table. They're not too high, and they're in the right position for me to quilt and follow my line. So the next part is adding the laser to this sidebar. Remember, this is the battery powered laser that you can order through us. You can order it when you order your system or after. If you have your own laser, remember you would be using this bolt and attaching your laser to this bolt. But in this case, we're going to use the battery powered one now. Okay, there is an instruction manual that does come in your box with the battery powered laser, and there are a lot of parts here that I'm not going to need. What I am going to need is this part right here, the little blue thing, and I put it so that the end of the bolts fits right in, and then it is going to fit right in there like that, because this has to be able to swivel. My batteries are put inside here, and then this is going to slip right in there like that, and then I'm going to use one of these to tighten that on there, and it just rolls right on. Again, I'm not mechanical, so I'm doing the best that I can to help you here, but there are instructions. We do send another bolt and a nut, and what you're going to do is you're going to find a hole that's available over here. It doesn't have to be in the leg part. So I have one up here. So I'm going to put that there, and then this bolt is going to go through that little hole right there. And remember, this is swiveling so that I can adjust where I want my laser. And I'm going to stick it in there. And then the nut is going to go in. And the nut does what's called a countersink. So when I put the nut on, I'm going to get it just started just a little bit with my finger, and then I'm going to push it in, and it goes into that little hole, and it holds the nut, and so then I'm going to tighten that. And I do need to use a hex wrench to tighten that. And the one thing as you're tightening it, the nut is in there, but the screw, the bolt, I'm sorry, is longer than the nut. So if you're still pushing with your finger on the inside, you're going to take that little bolt and it's going to go right in your finger. So you want to kind of watch that, and you're just going to tighten that up so that it's nice and snug, so that your laser isn't going to move anywhere there. And now that it's tight, then I can take my laser, the button is on the top, and I can adjust where I want the laser, and then this black right here, I'm going to tighten that so that I know where my laser is going to point, and I can point it. I want it for me. I don't want it out here like this, because I'm going to work with my laser. I want to be able to see what I'm doing, and so I want it straight down, and when I have it straight down, then I'm going to tighten it. Again, I'm going to make sure that my handles are where I want them, that my channel locks, I'll turn those off, and then I'll see that I can follow my line here. My laser's not moving, it's steady, and so now I'm going to tighten my side leg bolts. Remember, we didn't tighten those before. And again, I'm going to tighten those using the hex tool on this side, and then I'll do the same on this side so that my legs are not going to move either. Now that I have the laser hooked where I want, I have made sure in doing that I don't turn the laser light on until I have it pointed down, and then I can adjust it, because you don't want that laser light to accidentally blind you. And remember, I am not mechanical. That'd be something I would do. So please make sure that you have it pointed down before you do that. I told you that there were extra parts that came in the packet. So if the bolt is right for you, you've got the right bolt, it's level, you have the handles and the legs and the A-frame and all of that attached, and it's gliding over the top of your table, then you can take any of the extra parts that you have and take those and set them aside. Remember, if you have the battery laser, there are lots of parts you do not need, and I always just put all of that in the box so that if I have indeed put the laser on incorrectly, I haven't mixed these parts with the parts for the precise pantograph system. I kind of move stuff out of the way to make sure that everything is set. Remember, at the beginning I told you that different machines are different. On my machine, which is the APQS Millennium, the bolt here, I don't want it too long, and that takes just a little bit of work to get it attached. But as you can see, the whole system attached very, very easily without difficulty. Different machines are different. The base of the arm back part of the machine might be different, so you might need a different clamping system. Or on some of the machines the tables are different, and the running system with the wheels are different, the size is different. There might be something back here where you have to take and do kind of an angle in order to attach it, or in some cases we have some machines where there are 2 clamps that go underneath. We cannot anticipate everything for every machine. We try, we do the best we can, so we want to make sure that you are not frustrated and that you are very happy with the system that you have got. It will indeed make a huge difference in doing your pantographs and your designs very precisely. So we want to make sure that you're happy. If things are not going well, don't get frustrated. You don't have to do any drilling of holes. You don't have to have your husband come in and play mechanic. You can do this very easily yourself. But if something's not working, give Trinity a call or send an email and take pictures of how you've put your system onto the machine.
Obstacles.
There might be obstacles that you have on the machine, so again, you might have to angle that over on the side. Different machines are different, so again, if you're running into trouble, things aren't working, and we haven't anticipated what it is that you need for your particular machine, please send an email with pictures so that we can see what your machine looks like, what the wheel system looks like, how wide this is, if there are any obstacles back here that have to be overcome, and then if we need to send you a different plate that goes on the bottom, then we can do that. If you need to get shorter bolts or longer bolts, that information is included in your handout of instructions so that you can go to the hardware store and easily pick those up. We want to make sure that you're happy with whatever it is that you need in attaching this. Again, I want to review that I started on this side with this bolt, and I made sure as I gently tightened this that I was balancing my bar so that the bubble is between those two lines. And then I went to this bolt. I'm not reefing, I'm using the available holes here. I'm using the bolts, and I had a couple choices of bolts that would work the best. My machine is one of the more difficult ones to attach this bolt, but as you can see, by just being very careful, working, taking my time, I was able to get that bolt under there, tighten that up, and I'm set to go on having very precise pantographs. Make sure that your bar doesn't flex, move really up and down. So once those are tightened and you don't have that, I'm going to now talk about the best way to use the system. So if I turn the laser light on, I can see where it is and where my lines are. I have two handles here. I do not want to grip the handles like this. If I do, you can see where my arms are. I don't have good control over what's happening with the laser light and moving it. I want to pinch here, and I have my whole side of my hand resting on the table so that when I'm holding on right here, my hands on both sides are in contact with the table that whole time. I can glide. I don't want to push down so that my hand won't move, and if my hands are really sweaty or sticky, then I might use a little bit of baby powder or something like that on the edge of my hand so that it's going to glide on the table real easily. When I grab hold here, that's what I want to be able to do. I want to be able to glide the machine. I don't want to pull up, because if I do, you can see it moves the bar. I don't want to do that, nor do I want to push down on the handles, because then I lose that as well. If I am holding like this and my hands are not in contact, then it's more difficult to try and follow that line. I have less control. So it is very important that you have your hands in contact, however that's going to work for you, on the table on either side. You don't have a death grip. I just have a really light, and I can move my hands like this, my fingers, without moving my hands. If I'm in a really tight position, I can come in and I can do that. I don't have to glide my whole hand, but my hands are there to give me that support. Sometimes if I get into an area where the lines are really, really close, then I can also hold on. My hands are still in contact with the table. I've pinched with these fingers, and this finger goes right on top, and I'm gliding. Again, my hands are in contact with the table as I'm moving. I am not pushing down on this with my fingers. Remember, one of the things that we want to accomplish with the precise pantograph system is for you to be able to quilt very intricate designs very precisely without that stress on your arms, on your neck, on your shoulders. We want it to be a very stress-free on your body system. So again, no death grips. Make sure your hands are in contact with the table. If you are holding here and no contact, you might be able to follow the lines, but you have far less control to precisely follow them than if your hands are here. Lightly pinch and move the laser while your hands are gliding on the table, or put your fingers up here, not pushing down, just barely resting. Just think of just a feather touching that. You don't have to hold on tightly. It will move your machine very, very smoothly, very, very easily. The other thing that works well with the system is that you want to look at, I'm going to move it over here so you can see these areas. I do have a roller chair. It is not my most favorite, but it does work, and I want to adjust the height so that I am at the back in a very comfortable position. I don't want to be bent over because, again, we don't want to have that stress on the body. So if your chair doesn't allow you to sit up straight with good posture, you might need to look at a different chair. The other thing that you want to think about is where is your starting point and where is your ending point as you are doing your movement with the laser light while you're stitching. If you only go part way and you stop and then you move again, you will get a little bobble or a wiggle that happens in that particular area. So look at your start and your stop. Okay, I've decided here's my starting point, and I'm going to go here to this ending point. My chair is stationary, and it's like driving a car. The only time that I'm going to look at that laser light is at my beginning, and so when I drive a car, I always look ahead so I know where I'm going, and I know I'm going to stop here. So I'm going to do what my sister calls a swoosh. So I'm going to start here, and in between swoosh so I get a nice smooth movement. I have a hold of my handles, my hands are on the table, and I'm going to look ahead, and I'm going to start, and I'm going to swoosh to where I'm going to stop, and then I stop. So I have a nice smooth curve. Then again, I can see where I'm going to stop next, so I'm going to swoosh and stop. Here's my stop, so I'm going to swoosh and stop. I'm looking ahead of the laser light. I am not looking at the light. I need to know where I'm going. So in this case, my ending spot is over here, and here is my starting. So again, I'm going to swoosh and stop. Swoosh and stop. And as you can see, I'm gliding. My hands are not pushing down on the table. My muscles here in my forearms are nice and relaxed. I'm not tense, I'm not tight. It's a very smooth, easy holding. It's a very smooth movement of the machine so that as I'm quilting, I'm stress-free. For those of you women that have some kind of difficulty with your hands, whether it be arthritis or something like that, or if you have some difficulty because of a disability or inability to easily move, this is going to be great because, again, you're barely holding on, hands are in contact with the table, however it works for you, but in contact. Start, end, look ahead of the laser light, and swoosh and stop, and swoosh and stop. You can say it out loud or to yourself if that helps you. Once you become familiar with the machine, I don't have to always say that, but again, I always am looking ahead of the laser light where I'm going. At this point in time, I am not directly where I need to be to continue to be precise. So this is where I would move my chair. I'm not rolling along while I quilt. I'm only moving my chair when I need to. And as you can see, I have thick carpet in this particular area, and so I just slide my chair over. I don't have to have a smooth gliding spot, and now I am in a position to look and see where I'm ending. I have my hands there, and again, swoosh, stop, swoosh, stop, swoosh, stop, swoosh, stop, swoosh, stop, swoosh, stop. The other thing is when you are telling yourself, swish, stop, when you have a point on a pantograph, if you stop at that point, you're going to have a nice sharp point on your stitching. If you move and kind of miss that point and go up, that tight little curve, you're not going to have a real fine point. So that really helps when you're doing, in this case, flames or star points or things like that. And again, when you are swishing, you don't want to stop in the middle of the swish because it might be a place that you'll get a bobble. Sometimes, like on this place right here, my starting is here and my stopping is here. So I want to make sure that I prepare to do that swoosh clear over here and not stop. So I make sure my chair is positioned, and now I'm going to swoosh, keeping my eye ahead of the laser light. I'm not stopping because I haven't gotten to the stop spot, and I move, and there I am. The other thing that I did want to share with you is if you are in a position where right now I need to move my chair or I need to do some adjustment, I want to check what I'm doing on my sewing, that kind of thing, it's stable. It's not going to move. So my handles for starting my machine is clear on the back. Every machine is different. Some of the starts are up here, some of them are over here. Almost never are they right here where you need them. So keep that in mind, and if I'm concerned that it's going to bobble or move, my hand is here, I've got a hold of the handle, it's stabilized it, and I can reach over and turn my machine on or off, turn my machine on or off, turn my machine on or off, whatever it is that I need to do, and it's not moving because my hand is on the table stabilizing it. If my handles are way far away, I can always stabilize it on this side if I need to, and over here. But I found in stitching that once I stop, it doesn't go anywhere if my machine is balanced on the frame itself. The other thing that will help with that, if you have a concern, you can do needle down at this point in time, and that will hold it as well, so you can do whatever adjustment that you need. My machine is a stitch regulated machine. I know that not all of them are stitch regulated. The precise pantograph system can be used with a stitch regulated or a non-stitch regulated machine. If you are already used to your machine without a stitch regulator, you'll still be able to use this, but as with anything, it will take a little bit of practice so that you are moving this with your speed of your machine and the size of the stitches and what you want back here. Just as if you were free motion quilting in the front, it took you a while to figure out the speed of your machine and how fast you had to move your machine. Because my machine is stitch regulated, those are not things that I typically think about, but one of the things that does come to mind is that it would be even more important on a non-stitch regulated machine to have that idea of where am I going next to my next stopping point, so that I have that smooth, even movement of the machine, and with a little bit of practice you will be off and cooking. Again, on my machine, it is a stitch regulated machine. However, I want you to notice that how I have the precise pantograph system attached, it has nothing to do with the tension on my machine. It has nothing to do with the thread path. It has nothing to do with the speed of the machine or any of those kinds of things. It is merely an accessory or attachment that allows me to sit down and to do my pantographs instead of standing back here trying to move and quilt over here. I'm not turned sideways looking down trying to follow the light over there. Instead, I am sitting with the light right in front of me. I'm very easily able to move this. If I need to, I could rest my arms on my table, depending upon what my table is. But I found that when I'm doing that for my chair, it bends me over, which I don't want to do. So my arms are not resting on my table on that particular thing. If you are having trouble with your tension, you need to look at your tension on your machine, not the PPS. It doesn't have anything to do with that part of the operation of your machine. It merely moves your machine from the back while you are sitting down. My table is a 12-foot table, 126 inches. The quilt that I have loaded is a queen-size quilt. As you can see, I have enough space on either end that I could accommodate a larger quilt. I can put a king-size quilt in here, but if I'm doing a king-size and a pantograph, I'm going to have to do a little bit of adjustment to kind of offset the quilt a little bit and maybe not load it from the center so that I can go all the way to the very end of the quilt. It just depends on how large the quilt is. Remember, on the PPS there is that one hole in the back that you can move the A-frame and the legs over. That will give you an additional 5 inches as you are planning to load your quilt. You should know if you need that 5 inches or not. And also remember that you can take the PPS and you can turn it so it's on the other side of the frame if you need to. I will tell you that if you are doing a king-size quilt and it goes all the way to the end of your quilt and you have a section that isn't quilted, you can do that, but that's going to be a lot of planning to adjust your quilt. And so that is one of the things that you'll have to look at if you have a 10 or a 12-foot table. We're not saying that our PPS will do every single quilt that's out there because every frame is different, and if I have a quilt that's larger than 126 inches, without the PPS I would have difficulty doing it on my frame, and I would go to my sister's because she has a 14-foot frame, and I have done that. So again, keep that in mind. I know that as you move to the ends, as you are planning and loading your quilt, you're going to know whether you're going to be able to do that pantograph all the way to the ends of your quilt. On this particular quilt, a queen size, I don't have that much issue. I've been doing long arming for a very long time, and I don't get a lot of king-size quilts, and so it's not been a worry for me. Again, I'm going to pre-plan to make sure if I need that extra 5 inches, and I want to make sure before I start quilting, where is the PPS arm going to be so it doesn't hit the edge of my frame as I am moving down to that end. That would be quite jarring and not something that I want to pick out on my quilt. So do take a look at that as you are setting it up and loading your quilt. We're not going to go into how to do pantographs or how to load your quilt or those kinds of things because a lot of that information is already out there, and we're just about the PPS system helping you with those pantographs. One other thing, if you should have a very large quilt and you cannot do all the way edge to edge, you can always look at doing inside up to a border as far as you can, and then doing something free motion on the outside to accommodate that. There are lots of options out there. If you run into problems, give us a call and we'll see what we can do to help you. Again, we want to try and make you very pleased that you bought the PPS. The precise pantograph system truly is a revolutionary system that changes how you do pantographs. Do have a good day, and I hope you love your PPS system. I have to tell you, I love having my sister and that she invented it. It's made a huge difference for doing pantographs.